In the time we have, let me put this on. In the time we have to give you all the evidence we can why we believe the New Testament's reliable, it's not going to happen in this time. But what I want to start with, to pique your interest hopefully, and to get you thinking, is the concept of textual criticism. I'm sure many of you have heard the concept that you can't trust the Bible because it's been copied so many times and translated so many times. Have you heard that? Okay, and so the idea that as though okay, there was this copy, they copied it, of course there was errors in that copy, and somehow they lost the one they copied from, and they copied it again and again and again, implying all the previous copies disappeared. So then you have this copy hundreds and hundreds of years after the New Testament was written. How can we know that one represents the original? Let me say right up front that the original copies, so the original piece of paper that Paul or Peter or James penned, we do not have. They're called autographs. We don't have them. They're gone. I have a personal belief why they're gone. There's a practical reason. One would be they were used up. Okay, they're written on papyrus most likely, possibly vellum. Vellum is animal skins. But during the first century, papyrus was a very common piece of paper, you might say. And papyrus disintegrates pretty easily compared to vellum, animal skins. So they were copied, and they were handled a lot, and actually paper wears out. But also I believe, from a more spiritual perspective, that God didn't allow them to be preserved. Because you know what humans do with relics? What do we do to relics? We bow before them. We turn them into idols. Let's go all over the world and see what people bow before. And so that's my personal opinion. One reason we don't have the originals. 2 ones that got worn out, and 2 humans would bow before them. But can we ask the question, the Bibles we have in our hands, where's my Bible? How much does this, what's this called the New American Standard, it was translated about 40 years ago, how much can I have confidence that what I have in my hand is what Paul and Peter and Matthew and all of them wrote? And to do that, we have to talk about textual criticism. So I want to take you through, it's going to take me probably 20 minutes to do this minimum, and I want questions from you, if I'm not clarifying something right, ask. I know we got the pieces of paper in front of you, put them there. If during this thing, say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, interrupt me. If it gets too much interruption, I'll have to say no more interruptions because I got to get done eventually. But let me put a quote up here from Robert Funk. Robert Funk is, we have to readjust this. These are cool things, man. I remember overhead transparencies. These are nice. Can you guys read that in the back?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys have better eyesight than I do. Okay, even careful, this is by Robert Funk. Robert Funk was one of the leaders of what's called the Jesus Seminar. The Jesus Seminar was when professors that started out of University of Chicago, and they don't believe the New Testament's reliable. And so what they did is that they were evaluating all of Jesus' statements. That's all they were looking at was the words of Jesus, and taking each one individually and asking the question, did Jesus really say that? And they had a series of scale from positive to sort of kind of maybe, probably not, to no. 4 levels. And they just voted on it. And whatever they voted on, the majority, is it. Jesus didn't say that. Yep, Jesus did say that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Bottom line, what Danny just told us, they didn't do it based on evidence. They did it based on presuppositions. Jesus could not, a human being cannot be God. Therefore, Jesus never claimed to be God. So if you read the New Testament where Jesus claimed to be God, it can't be from Jesus' lips because Jesus wouldn't do that. Do you see the logic? We believe he couldn't do it, therefore he didn't. So if the Bible says he did it, they're wrong. Tell me you understand that. Go like this. Do something. Okay, so this is Robert Funk. Look what he says about the manuscripts. He says, even careful copyists make mistakes, as every proofreader knows, so we will never be able to claim certain knowledge about exactly what the original text of any biblical writing was. Notice his words, claim certain knowledge of exactly. What he's saying here, which is common among many of scholars who deny the resurrection of Christ, who deny miracles, who deny the New Testament, they would claim that the Bible is unreliable and you can't trust it. There's no absolute certainty we can know the Bible. What we have in our hands today was what Paul and Peter and all them wrote. And I'll acknowledge this much. Absolute certainty is not going to happen. Absolute certainty is, if I drop this pin, what's going to happen to it? It's going to fall. How do you know that?
Gravity.
Okay, gravity. And gravity's proven how? You can test it. You can repeat it. It's very observable. I can't go back and absolutely prove to you the original documents 100% with absolutely no doubt that what we have today is 100% exactly what Paul wrote. But I'm going to hope tonight to show you we can get incredibly close. Incredibly close. Now, so absolute certainty with no shred of doubt is not going to happen. But these guys bring a despair. You can't know anything. You can't know anything. That's not reasonable either. In fact, that's completely unreasonable. I'm going to hope to show you the beginning time, get you thinking that certainty is very possible. But in life, absolute certainty, there's almost nothing, there's very few things you can have absolute certainty with no doubts whatsoever. There's very few things in life we have that with. This pen dropping is one of the few. And the day that doesn't drop is going to freak us out. So with that, I want to start with this idea. Is his despair of certainty valid? What we're going to do, I'm going to give you some information in regards to the New Testament. The New Testament's written in Greek. And when it comes to manuscripts, we have 5,700 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. These range from the 2nd century to the 16th century. Can anyone tell me possibly around the 15th, 16th century why the handwritten manuscripts stopped being produced? A little louder. Printing press. In the 15th century, they invented the printing press. So there's no longer a need for handwritten manuscripts. The printing press brought about a change in the world, a major change in the world. So there's a few manuscripts written after the printing press. That's why it goes in the 16th century. But there's 5,700 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. There's 10,000 Latin manuscripts of Latin. Now the New Testament's written in Greek. It's written in Greek, but the first language it's going to be translated into is Latin, because the Romans ruled the Mediterranean world, and their first language is Latin. All right? So they took over from where Alexander the Great had ruled the Mediterranean world when he had everyone speak Greek. Latin takes over eventually, so naturally the Greek manuscripts are going to be translated into Latin very quickly. 10,000 of them we have in our possession. We have over 10,000 manuscripts from other languages. These are all languages from around the Mediterranean, Coptic and the Armenian, Georgian, Syriac. And both of the Latin and the other languages, many of those manuscripts date back as far as the 2nd century also. And then lastly, we have over 1 million quotation in church fathers. So as they had their Bibles in front of them, they had manuscripts. Then they're writing letters to people and writing books and writing commentaries. And they're quoting the New Testament. There's over 1 million quotations of the New Testament, to where if we lost every one of the 5,700, 10,000, we lost all manuscripts of all languages, and we just had the church fathers, we could reproduce the New Testament 100%. That's how much is quoted. So we have an amazing amount of evidence. It's almost an embarrassment of riches, as one scholar puts it, of how many manuscripts we have in the New Testament. Now I want to compare this. Now, what people are telling you, though, is you can't trust what's in your hand as representing the original. Now, any ancient document, we have to ask the question, how much can we trust the copies we have today of ancient documents to reflect the original? Let me show you this chart here, and hopefully it makes sense. I have to back it out a little. Can you see that in the back? Yes. I'll show you the first ones there. Now, if you look on the left, you're going to see 5 writers. Livy, Tacitus, and Suetonius were Roman historians from the 1st and 2nd century A.D. And then Thucydides and Herodotus were Greek historians back in the 4th century B.C. All right, so you all with me on that? In the next column, you're going to see the oldest manuscripts. I guess my things didn't line up real well. The oldest manuscripts we have from them. So Livy lives in the 1st century B.C. to just the beginning of the A.D. We have, from the 4th century A.D., we have one manuscript of his. So 400 years after he wrote it, we have this manuscript. We have 26 manuscripts of his that come 1,000 years later. You understand that? You see that? So then we have Tacitus. Tacitus wrote called the Annals of Rome. And we have 3 of his manuscripts surviving. The oldest one we have, closest to him, is in the 9th century A.D., 700 years after he lived. So Suetonius, he wrote a book that's still in print today called The 12 Caesars. And it's a great read. He tells the lives of all, not the lies, some of those, the lives of all 12 Caesars. And it's a great read, especially the part of Nero, because Nero was a strange character.